You ever get that feeling? You stumble across something online, maybe a story, an idea, and it seems really interesting, but, well, who has the time to really dig in?
Yeah, exactly. Life gets busy.
So that's what we're doing today. We're taking that time, diving deep into something called The Liat Show.
Right.
The creator calls it a story unfolding across timelines, which honestly sounds intriguing.
Yeah.
It seems to mix all sorts of things: history, music, science, business, art, food, personal stories too.
It's quite a mix, and we've got a decent amount of material to look at, which is good for us.
Yeah.
We have pieces from the show's own About page, the archive, specific articles like Building the Future, lessons from Israel's early housing challenges, from trans camps to triumph, even broader stuff like one on the Industrial Revolution and housing.
Okay.
Plus more personal bits, plans on paper, pain in real life, a call to action, a thank you note from Liat. It gives a pretty rounded picture. Got it. So a lot of different angles. Our mission then for this deep dive is to try and figure out, what is the Liat Show really? What's the core idea and why might someone want to check it out?
Sounds like a plan.
So let's start right there. What exactly is this show?
Well, Lear Portal, she's the creator. She describes herself in a really interesting way.
Oh, yeah.
She says she's the daughter of the greatest storyteller of all time, who also happens to be an architect of buildings.
Okay, that's a statement.
It is, and she feels she inherited this knack, maybe,
Yeah.
for weaving together threads that don't seem related into one big story.
I like that architect idea, but she says she's not an architect of buildings or software, but something new.
Exactly. It's like she's saying, look, this is different. You need to see for yourself how the story unfolds every day.
So it's evolving, not static.
Definitely. The format seems to be episodes from her own life, but then she weaves in Israeli culture, music, food, art, entrepreneurship, that kind of thing.
Right. And she mentions they often come out in sets, like themed collections, but also standalone pieces, so you can jump in wherever.
Okay, digestible, and it's a reader-supported publication. That usually means something like Substack, right?
Precisely. That brings us to Substack.
So what is Substack, and why would someone, join the Liat Show there?
Okay, so Substack is basically the platform hosting the show. Think of it like a direct channel from creators like Liat straight to their audience.
Right, for written stuff, podcasts.
Exactly. And if you subscribe free or paid, she offers both you're directly supporting her work, helping her make more of it.
Makes sense.
And she also talks about the community there, calls them civilized people looking for real conversations. So it suggests it's not just about reading, but maybe interacting too.
Ah, okay. Like a community space around the content. Is it only on Substack, though?
No, good point. She mentions it's also on YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and even Patreon.
Okay, so lots of options depending on how people like to listen or watch.
Yeah, you can follow or support her in different places.
Got it. So we know what it is, where to find it now. A big part seems to be these conversations she has with her father, Nissim. What's the deal there? What makes them unique?
I think what really stands out is that they're intergenerational. You've got a father and daughter talking about, well, sometimes pretty heavy historical stuff.
Like the early Israeli housing, you mentioned those articles?
Exactly. The immense challenges of housing people after the state was founded, they really get into that, drawing on his experiences.
It's interesting. You said she's his daughter, but it sounds like sometimes she's almost the student in these conversations.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it, especially in that From Transit Camps to Triumph series. It feels a bit like we're, eavesdropping on a personal history class. She's exploring it through his knowledge. So the uniqueness is probably that mix. It's personal, you feel the family connection, but it's also tackling big historical and social questions.
Right. It makes the history feel less distant, maybe, more human.
I think so, yeah.
And speaking of that father-daughter dynamic,
Right.
What about generational differences? Does that come through? Can we learn anything there?
Oh, definitely. There are these moments, like Liat mentions being hesitant to share her dream school idea with Nissim.
What was the idea?
Something about, like, integrating compulsory education with social media. Very future-focused.
Okay. Yeah, I can see why she might hesitate, expecting maybe some skepticism.
Exactly, that generational sort of, oh, that'll never work vibe. But apparently he didn't dismiss it. He actually got into it. Even seemed enthusiastic about parts of it.
Huh. Interesting.
Yeah. And you also get hints of, the typical tech comfort level differences. Nissim apparently mentioned struggling a bit with Facebook and Instagram.
While Leah is obviously very online, running this whole digital show.
Right. So you see the differences, but crucially, you also see them talking through them.
Mm.
They don't just, like, represent gaps. They actively bridge them in their talks.
So it's about the conversation itself, bridging those perspectives.
Exactly. It shows how different generations can connect and, learn from each other. It's not just conflict.
Okay, that's a nice takeaway. Now, Lyatt is asking for support subscriptions, founding members, annual members. Why should someone consider doing that? What's the pitch?
Well, the core idea seems to be about unlocking her potential, really. Enabling her to dedicate herself to creating this show, this story.
Helping her write the next great chapter, as she puts it.
Yeah, that kind of language.
Mm.
It frames the supporter not just as an audience member, but as an essential part of the story. You're investing in the creation process.
Making it happen. And she mentions her journey to infinity. Sounds quite personal.
It does. It suggests subscribers get a closer look at her own process, her journey. And importantly, she stresses, there are free and paid options.
Right, so you can dip your toe in first.
Exactly. Check it out. See if it connects. The overall feeling is, this is something she feels must come to life, and support helps that.
Which leads to the big question, I guess. Can she actually get, say, 1,000 subscribers? Is that the magic number to, as the notes say, be set free to fulfill her destiny?
Well, that's kind of the call to action, isn't it? It's framed directly to the listener, tapping into that idea of supporting creators you believe in.
Right.
The implication is clear. Reaching a certain level of support, like 1,000 subscribers, means she can dedicate more time, more resources. Basically, take it to the next level.
Fulfill the vision. I saw something about a YouTube award nomination being linked to that number too.
Yeah, the YouTube Rising Star Award. So hitting that milestone isn't just about funding. It's also potentially about recognition and growth on other platforms.
Yeah.
Tangible benefits.
Okay, so for people listening who are interested, who think, yeah, I want to support this, what are the practical options again?
The main one highlighted is Substack, which is $8 a month. That likely gets you the core written content, maybe podcasts there too.
Okay.
And then there's also Patreon mentioned at just $1 a month. So a different platform, much lower entry point, just another way to chip in.
Good to have options. It's always fascinating to see where these independent projects find an audience. You mentioned a thank you note. Did it say anything about reach?
It did, actually,
Yeah.
and it was pretty impressive. She mentioned subscribers tuning in from 87 countries.
87. Wow.
Yeah, and 34 U.S. states.
Okay, that's genuinely global. Any examples?
Yeah, U.S. states like California, New York, Massachusetts, Texas, Florida, pretty widespread.
Mm-hmm.
And countries mentioned included the U.K., Canada, Israel, Germany, India, Brazil. I mean, really all over Europe, Asia, Africa, South America.
So this story unfolding across timelines is definitely finding people everywhere.
It really seems to be resonating widely, yeah.
Okay, let's shift gears slightly. Another big theme that seems to pop up, especially in those talks with her dad, is urban planning. Why is that so important in their conversations?
Yeah, it comes up a lot, particularly when they discuss those early Israeli housing projects we mentioned.
Right, the challenge of
Nissim's core point seems to be that the general public, well, we often don't really understand basic urban planning, what makes a city work, what good planning even looks like.
Okay. Does he give examples?
He gives a really specific one about planning maps in Israel. Apparently, areas marked in brown often represent public buildings, schools, community centers, things like that.
Oh, okay. Not like parks or open space.
Exactly. He suggests people might assume it's green space, but it's actually designated for essential public infrastructure. And if you don't know
You don't know what your neighborhood is supposed to have or what you might be missing.
Precisely. Their argument is that this lack of understanding makes it harder for people to advocate for their own communities. If you don't know what the plan should include, schools, parks, services, how can you push for them? How do you even know your rights as a resident?
It's about knowledge being power, basically. If you're in the dark, you can't really participate effectively.
Yeah. And they link this directly to some of the long-term problems that came out of that rapid, sometimes poorly planned development in early Israel.
Social issues. Economic problems.
Right. When you build housing quickly without fully considering jobs, schools, transport, social services, it can create lasting issues, even resentment. They touch on that in pieces like Plans on Paper, Pain in Real Life.
Makes sense. And Layat thinks this stuff should be taught in school.
She does. She suggests Basic urban planning concepts should be part of compulsory education because it's so fundamental to how we live and how our communities function. It's about active citizenship.
Huh. That's actually a really interesting point. I'd never thought of it like that.
Me neither before digging into this.
So, wow. This deep dive, it feels like The Late Show is really trying to do a lot. It's personal, it's historical, it's tackling big societal ideas like urban planning.
It definitely seems ambitious
Yeah.
and unique in its blend of the personal story, the father-daughter dialogue, and these broader themes, all fueled by direct support from its audience.
Yeah, it's quite a package. So if listening to this has got you curious,
Which it might well have.
then we definitely say go explore The Late Show for yourself. You can find it on Substack, Patreon, YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, basically all the usual places.
Just search The Liat Show, that's Liat, or maybe Live Portal Podcast on Google, YouTube, wherever you get your podcasts. You'd find plenty.
And maybe we can leave you with this thought to chew on. Think about the places you live, work, move through every day, your street, your town, your city. How might understanding a bit more about why they're planned the way they are, how might that change how you see them or how you engage with your community?
Yeah, something to consider. And just for clarity again, the names are Liat, pronounced Liat,
Lee, got it.
and her father, Nissim, pronounced Nis.
Nias.
Yeah.
Perfect.